Okay, now
we're live.
Hey, how's it going?
We're live.
We are live.
I'm dead.
Oh,
no.
that explains a lot.
Yeah.
But we also.
I think you're the only one that's not dead.
No. Yeah.
So how's everybody doing?
Pretty good.
All right.
Great.
I realize the camera is centered on my forehead.
Pretty
Thank
good.
you
I'm just
for-
watching. I had to give my cat medicine this morning, and now she's contemplating the tissue box
Well, I
very
think you had
deeply.
3 cats.
That
I only
was
have
really
one.
cats.
I think Ben has 3 cats.
We have 2 cats, and we have a foster cat slot in our house. So yeah, we do currently have 3 cats in the house.
Right.
So
But one is adoptable if you want a really weird calico lady who's very friendly and hates other cats.
I can't have pets in this apartment, unfortunately.
Oh man, I'm removing myself from this, given that I'm on a different continent. Please don't ship your cat to me.
Yeah.
No problem.
Very stressful for the cat.
Yeah. Oh man.
So today, thanks for joining. We're just going to have an informal hour-long chat about Qadida the game, which is, of course, a playtest of material by Derk, who's on the call, who's just wrote this new book that we're publishing, which we're still working on, but a lot of it is written. Ian, we should have a separate non-stream production update meeting at some point.
Don't we have one of those tomorrow?
Oh, maybe we do.
Yeah, like you mean, I think Jed, the editor of the book, have a meeting scheduled tomorrow.
Then great. Earlier Wythe has already solved the problem for future Wythe, so that's great. But yeah,
Past Wythe's a genius.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but yeah,
I
we're
love
very
that guy.
excited. We raised
Way
enough
better
money.
than President Wife.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Howard went to his head right away. And yeah, we're very excited to get that book out, and we're super excited to have this streamed game because it was a spy versus spy A/B game, and we wanted to have a chatty in part because there was a lot to unpack. Like some stuff didn't get covered because there were 6 players, 3 GMs, and a limited number of sessions. So yeah, I thought we had some good questions. Oh, and hey, here's Aaron.
Hey, Aaron.
Oh, hello.
I'm kind of thinking, Jeff, do you want to kick it off? Because you brought up a good question that I think is like a nice intro.
Well, I was thinking maybe the other way because it'd be easier for people to follow.
Talk about
You know,
backstories and stuff.
Oh,
first,
sure,
and
sure,
then
okay.
Sure.
what we
Ben,
would
do you want to
do.
kick it off with your question? And then
Yeah,
we'll
my question for everyone, and I think it'll be helpful for viewers as well, is like our characters had a lot going on. Because the whole point of this like dual venture was, oh yeah, like you're hired to do a job, but do you want to do the job? What are your motivations versus like what a state has told you to do? So I'm just curious what everyone's like character backstory, and then like, you know, given circumstances and how that informed their action that they actually took in the show was.
Rachel, I know you had a pretty elaborate character backstory that we only glossed over a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that I mean, there's so many, like I'm still quite new to games, like, and there's so many things that I want to get better at, but like actually incorporating the things that I have like created or headcanons and stuff is like one of them. But yeah, sure, I can go first. So Rel Stacks, Demolitions Expert, Cherub. One of the main things with her is being a veteran, right? So she was a veteran of the Battered Shield, and it was kind of the thing. Well, I mean, I did that whole stream on creating the character, so I guess like some people already know this. It was kind of the intersection of like, okay, well, what if you had like a veteran, like an old soldier, mashed in with like demolitions and space yoga? Like, what is that person? So had this kind of like mix of like, you know, she went through the war, and like kind of her entire motivation was just to prevent another war like that. And like it was very interesting for me creating a character, which I know we're going to get onto this, creating a character that is like the bad guy in quotes, because I studied ethics. I specialized in ethics, in philosophy, like that was my degree and everything. And like I I feel like that's one of my weaknesses as a player, is that I'm so concerned with ethics all the time, and I find it really hard to role play doing things that like I would just, that are complete like ethical boundaries for me in real life. So like part of the fun challenge of this was like, okay, how do I make a character that is working for Worshipful Qadida and who has like a genuine motivation to actually assassinate someone?
You definitely had more going on than I did. Your character was more fleshed out. The thing I was doing was all about, I'm going to be the one who's as close to a true believer as it gets. I'm not really invested in the crew, but I'm here to do the job. The last time I played Stillfleet, I betrayed everyone. There was an attempt, and I decided that this time I was going to be the straight man, the straight bug of the thing. And that's why I decided to wipe the memories, and I needed something very, very fucked and traumatic to bring the memories out. And then I was told I was dying from ultra poison.
I'm sorry.
I think that works perfectly, because like I think our characters kind of like balance each other out almost. Like there's like they're kind of complementary, and that like we couldn't have a team of just the fucking like, you know, like kind of centrists or kind of doing this just because it's a job and who have very complicated feelings about it, like, or just all the like cold hard assassins. Like I feel like having your character that was like very mission focused like helped make space for mine, and I guess for Terri as well, to like do other things.
I think playing off of that, I was the multiple rabbit-sized and appearing robots, and I was the true believer, I think, of my party. Oh wait, one more word. It's Angero. No. I think that's how he did it. Arsenio Hall. Anyway, I was the true, or I thought I was the true believer, because I feel like a lot of times I end up being like maybe more cynical characters, but I wanted to be truly. I didn't know a lot about Maoism, so I did have to read a little bit. I think I got it, but I think he ended up being more of a actual how do you say it, like post, you know, like communism is just a side stop to true socialism or things like that. So like I was thinking like, and also one of the things I was thinking about was like, what is a robot, like why does a synthetic being who doesn't care about scarcity, how do they interact with this ideology that cares about that sort of thing? And so I was trying to interact, and that's where I was going with that.
Jeff, I thought that your character had the most matured, in the sense of like you brought it to fruition, ethos of all of the characters that played. Like you fulfilled your character arc through the end. Like, I mean, you fucking blew everyone up. I mean, that was, and then you turned that into like getting a higher station with your organization, and I think that was I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, I was trying to think like, what am I gonna do? But yeah, and then oh, Ethan, you just got we were talking about what was going on with our characters.
Oh, cool. I have to say, the moment when D.O.G got onto Angero's head and then flipped out his captain's hat and started barking orders in the role, suddenly let the Angero D.O.G entity start commanding. For me, that was sort of a high point of that arc. Of like, oh, getting things done. This is great.
We call that a Ratatouille moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
For Guy, the whole genesis of the character was when we sort of were splitting up in teams and like figuring out who was doing what. Wythe sent me a message that essentially like, do you want to screw everything up? And I was like, of course I want to screw everything up. And so he gave me the sort of like extra mission of like, you are the HCO mole on the Free Qadida intelligence response team. Your job is to their job is to protect the newly elected workers bureau chief, but your job is to kill them. The idea being that like you work for the honorable company, and the honorable company does not like this new person's politics, does not like YTS's politics at all, does not want dualism to happen, does not want revisionism. And so like they have hired someone to make that stop. But they don't want anyone to know that they're the ones doing it. Yeah. And so the idea is like, try to pin it on someone else, or at least just make it vague enough. So that was the like thing that made me be like, okay, so who's my character? Well, I guess my character should probably be like in organized crime, because like mafiosos, organized crime people, like they're like always in bed with intelligence. It's just like, that's like how it works. And so I was like, okay, great. I'm going to be a mafioso. So I probably want to play Jackal, but that's like, I have to be like something innocuous, because if I'm the like crazy obvious charlatan criminal, they're gonna be like, why are you on this team? Like who would hire, what like socialist government would hire this guy to do exactly what he's doing? And so I was like, okay, great. I was turned into a child in my backstory by a health scientist, and like thrown in prison after assassinating another member of the government, but who was actually like from the worshipful company. So good.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is there a hell science power that turns people into children, or is that just like completely made up as backstory?
There's one that
a
makes
power
you
called
old.
Wrinkle. Yeah, it makes you a lot older.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And so I was just like, I got reverse
So
wrinkle.
theoretically, the reverse of that. Yeah.
I think it also works that we ended up having 2 HCO people, and so that did dovetail nice in like, don't let anybody know it was HCO. Well, you have and also like in these, and a lot like, not a lot of, how do you say it? And like any political organization, there's always factions and also people trying to do slightly different things ostensibly for the same goal. And so, yeah, I think that is nice there that we had that sort of representation.
I mean, it was also just funny on our team that like very clearly both D.O.G and Guy were like, yeah, we're not like a huge fan of this.
Yeah, that's something we definitely like left y'all to decide, which is like, wait, is this job a good or bad job? Like being ordered to kill someone is inherently bad, but it depends. Like if it's to help protect a whole state and its freedom, how would your characters like decide, and what would you decide to do? Like we did not, as far as I know, we did not like push you guys in any direction regarding the central job. So it was very interesting to see the 2 teams of 3 like internally debate, knowing that kind of in the end, it seemed like everyone except maybe Ethan was going to kill this guy. So
everybody but Angero.
What was Andrew's thing?
I mean, so Angero is like, it's a long line of I'm a relative newcomer to tabletop games, but I always played like, role-playing games in general, like as a kid growing up, and I've always, and like to this day, I really like playing characters who are like not necessarily heroes in their own mind, but like have this real sort of like ethos that's kind of unrealistic, and they have a kind of person they want to become, and like the road to getting there, it's a real coin toss whether they're going to survive that road. But like it's almost like I'm really satisfied with how Angero bit it in the end, because like his whole character sheet explains that he fancies himself like a grizzled gumshoe on the streets and isn't. And like he really wants to be that person, so it's almost like a Spike Spiegel, like Cowboy Bebop sort of thing. Like there's only if he wants to be that true space cowboy punk, like there's only one way that he's going to get there, through the mud and then die. So like if he really wanted to uphold that fantasy and like make the fantasy reality, like Qadida's a seedy, violent, terrible place. So yeah, no. So I was really happy with that.
Before we move on, I have one more question. So in our episode, at the end, Angero got like a message and that's where he was like, trust no one. What was the message from the GM that you got at the end? What was the actual message?
Oh, what do you mean?
Do you remember like where you got like when you did the
That's right.
red strings?
No, it was that like the people that we were helping, they were like it was basically that the interfactional politics were so much worse, and that people inside the order were also gunning for Gillitan Shaver. So like the people we were helping were also also trying to kill him. It was like petty. It was just petty factionalism. It wasn't even like a political thing.
Mm-hmm.
It sent you on my trail. Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of like, oh, I've got to be suspicious of everybody. Wait, surely they don't mean my favorite people in the world, this working party.
Yeah.
When I caught a glimpse of Andre's notebook.
Huh? No, go ahead, Leo. And then I think we should move to Jeff's question, which really dovetails nicely. But Leo, what were you saying?
There was a moment when I caught a glimpse of Andrew's notebook, and among the various things that were written in there, there was stuff about the hell science, and you mentioned having become somewhat disillusioned after some stuff that you learned. Was there anything in terms of like weird experimentation going on? Was Yellow Tent Shaver attached to some sort of strange research?
No, I said that partly, I mean, because it was plain fact with what Angero and the party were investigating, but also as kind of a MacGuffin, because our team was trying to figure out like a way to protect Yellow Tent Shaver at all costs, but we didn't have a lot of time, so it was like we had to sort of start choosing like, are we going to try and protect against health science attacks? Are we going to try and protect against bio attacks? And so like, I listed health science among all the other stuff, and it was just literally the item list of the things that we were trying to ward off. But it turns out he was killed by everything. So.
Yeah, technically health science did
and then a
kill
piano
him.
Fell on him, and
health science did kill him in several ways, because the person who poisoned him was affected by the health science, and then I guess you were nanofluidics, right? So that's
I was doing blood or stuff,
but weird stuff. Yeah, I mean, partially I think it's also it was interesting, that mechanic of like what you can do to protect against the assassination, and then of course because this was not overly planned and there's different GMs, there wasn't a one-to-one. Like you did a lot of protecting that then didn't turn out to necessarily matter. But I think that's also somewhat realistic, right? Because most assassination, I mean, how do you really stop like a political figure who has to go around and shake hands and et cetera?
Yeah,
it was all centered on the conference hall.
Yeah,
it also set up things for later, because like, right, we were focusing on things that turned out to be red herrings, but sort of not. And like, in my case, like I was setting up like the poison detectors, and I wonder why I was the one doing that, right? Like, well, and Jeff, like you were like putting your bodies everywhere, which did end up being very useful.
Right.
Yeah.
But Ben's like, I'm putting poison detectors in, and then privately messaging Ian like, I'm not putting poison detectors in.
Yeah.
Narrator voice, he wasn't.
A production thing where we could have done it differently, A, if we knew how, and B, if we thought through this, but like we didn't have that, right? So the viewer also was only getting whatever Ben says to camera, but then there's also Discord chats where someone's like, back channeling, which was great and felt very in the spirit of the thing. And if we had like an ongoing Qadida campaign, we would have to think of some fun way to like decide what to show, on screen. But thanks everyone for kind of jumping into the experiment and just like rolling with it, despite the fact we absolutely did not know how to do that. So the question Jeff asked first was, I think, really awesome. So Jeff, do you want to ask?
It's a simple question, inspired by something that, now that I think about it, maybe is problematic to mention on cam, but yesterday was the anniversary of a thing happening, and
you're talking about Abe? I think you can.
The assassin. Sorry.
I love the opening still of yesterday was the anniversary of a thing.
Shinzo Abe was assassinated. I happen not to be that's incriminating me. I happen not to be a fan of Abe's politics or in general, but they were assassinated at a conference where he was promoting a political candidate, And that made me think like, oh, so like if we switched the teams around, what would have been your approach to doing it?
Wow, damn, that's like.
Oh boy.
So
The way I created my character was based on the fact that I knew I was going to be going on an assassination mission. I would probably not have come up with Wilted Shriek Collector for another mission, so the toolkit would have been completely different. But certainly because I came up with an item for the assassination that could have been useful for protecting the Elephant Shaver. There, I had the boneless ability, so I could fit into very, very tight spaces. And we concocted a briefcase into which I could jam myself to be smuggled into locations and then unfold out of it, wear the world skin, and raise hell. So what could have happened is that I could have been conveniently on Yellowton Shaver's briefcase when he was in transit between locations, because then if shit happens, he just drops the briefcase and there's a nightmare monster that comes out of it.
Pop out the bludder.
Yeah, you reverse Saudi people. Yeah.
Oh, that's another.
Good night, folks.
I just read this. It says Shinzo Abe is best known for his signature Abenomics policy featuring bold monetary easing and fiscal spending.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a lot of. So to be fair, I created Yellowstone Shaver, Aaron, after you and I discussed this basic setup for Venture, and I was thinking of like Mikhail Gorbachev specifically,
right?
Just the end of the Soviet Union and the thaw with the
which is why I call him Gorbachev
or whatever. Yeah,
Gorbachev.
But, like,
yeah.
We also were joking about like this is every single liberal politician who like is basically like, yeah, center right policies probably just make the most sense for everyone, right? Like everyone's going to benefit, right? And that's like their function. But it is funny. I had not thought of Abe, but Abe definitely fits the bill. I mean, we in no way modeled this story on killing shit. So
I mean, they all probably like went to Exeter together somehow. It's like him, Tony Blair. They're all basically just the same person, carbon copies. So.
He's still on the ID thing, which is very funny.
You brought up Abe, and there was previous mention of revisionism, which is something that Abe also likes doing. So
yeah,
what sort of revisionism?
Well, a different kind of revisionism, but yes.
wait, Leo, would say your question because this is the good. I like this.
What sorts of revisionist thought was Yellowton Shaver putting out there that the H code didn't like? What was he saying? Because like with Abe too, we didn't do all that horrible stuff in the Asian mainland during the wars. That didn't happen.
Well, because I think you're thinking of there's two different meanings of revisionism, and Abe's revisionism is like historical revisionism, i.e., like saying something didn't happen that happened, or vice versa. In his case, it's the former. But no, the other revisionism being like revisionism of socialist and communist policies to liberal ones.
Yeah. All right. So not historical on Yellowton Shaver's side.
And that's stuff that hasn't come out yet because the book isn't published and Ian's still writing it. So there is like I think the war is 10 years old. So this would be kind of like not even World War II, right? Like the lead up to like the Nazis taking over Germany in Europe after, you know what I mean? If you think of the dates, like when the Soviet Union was founded. So 10 years is like really a short time in the lifetime of a nation, and that's one thing about Qadida, kind of the same way with the company. Like a company's about to be a lot more evil in the canonical setting of Stillfleet, but it hasn't done that much yet because it was kind of just getting its crap together for 300 years, and then there was this weird 20-year break where like nothing worked. And so I think similar with Qadida, like people are probably going to fight over the meaning of like what actually happened during the war and like who, like the span, like who destroyed so much of the city and like blaming each other. And there's that fight over like, well, we all know it was really the fault of the communists or whatever. But I think this was more, about the economic policy. It was basically saying instead of having a totally closed, planned economy, YTS was going to open up Free Qadida to trade with the company and through the company other worlds. And that would benefit people in some ways because they could get goods they couldn't get otherwise. But it would mean they'd have to adopt, like they couldn't have a totally planned, self-sufficient economy. So again, like we did not discuss it much beyond that. It was a very brief, like that's the thing people might have opinions about.
I was going to say the thing very important to keep note is that one of the reasons why the company is so powerful is because they control one of the I guess, only known hubs of the central MacGuffin of the universe, the Stiffworks, the portals
Right.
that go everywhere. They kind of control. They also kind of have the largest organization of educational organization of teaching people how to use them. So if you don't control that, you're kind of really limited to where you can go, unless
It's like the spice.
Mhm.
Yeah, like how the spice controls faster than light
Yep.
navigation, right?
It's modeled. It's pretty much directly modeled on the spice, right? I mean, it's not like I made up these basic ideas. It's just trying to give them names to make a different. I mean, it's not Dune, but it is modeled on some of those same dynamics about like space capital.
What is the spice but controlling the naval?
routes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the spice were like the lower level of Penn Station, stacked on itself 1,000.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, what a good comparison, man.
I think about that place a lot.
Penn Station does feel like going into one of those holes from the Enigma of Amigara Falls.
Yeah,
Like
Penn Station is more like the Terri Gilliam version of Spindle and Spindle has
Right.
more earthen qualities and cave qualities to it, but
It just needs like a giant cartoon hand that when you go through one of the gates, like it picks you up and flicks you off into the universe.
I realize now, like, part of the people that like don't understand what Penn Station, it's badly laid out, I think, at a certain
oh
point.
yeah, thank you, Jeff.
okay, well, but do you know the Greek myth of the labyrinth? Because it's basically that, but it's a train station.
There's like
there's a Minotaur in there being like,
quarters of
damn.
Penn Station too. Like, weirdly enough.
The Minotaur is just Eric Adams.
It used to be very
Down
beautiful. There was the old Penn Station, and it was like one of the great architectural like wonders of the United States. And they tore it down. And they built an underground mall that is exactly as described. It is as if Terri Gilliam was hired by Satan to make a maze in the shape of a mall. It's definitely an inspiration.
It's like a long. It's just kind of like a long road mall, not like a mall like in a circle. It's just
We're
like
talking about the Oculus.
No, Penn
Oh
Station.
no, the Oculus
Oh.
is so much worse.
Very beautiful,
It's
but worse.
just like a long. The mall part is just like a long strip for reasons of I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, then there's like
I
the
think
loop.
it's an infernal ley line, like in Good Omens, where it's like it's set up specifically to be a demonic sigil in some way. Everybody's frustration going around.
This is
and
an
around and around
anti-Penn
it.
station.
Yeah.
There's a reason that there's a reason-
Moynihan's okay. The new Moynihan Hall is fine, but it's still on top of the
Moynihan
old Penn
Hall.
Station.
Guys, we're
There's
gonna
a
have to do
Ghostbusters takes
multiple.
place in the city.
This isn't a
We're gonna have to do
logistics-
more episodes, specifically, where we make fun of Eric Adams and Shinzo Abe, and where we talk about architecture. But this,
I mean, it
We're
is
all
a
excited.
hey. Transit figures very prominently in the Worshipful Qadida team's game, so
There you
I
go.
do think
Did
it
it, got us
fits.
back.
Well, I would say, segueing from Wythe's meta comment about our discussion, I think that the first two episodes of the series, at least my group, we had some digressions that definitely interrupted what I imagined the narrative would be.
Oh, we had LinkedIn.
You could say that.
There was a menacing stump that I considered eating, and then Rel got documents out of.
Actually, public transit also factors into this as well.
Yeah, we were going to kill for people who didn't even give us buzz money.
Honestly, I do think that like part of how the hit shook out, as in like we were going there for recon, and then we're like, shall we and then just do it in broad daylight? And I think part of the reason that happened is because it took us so long to get there that like I was like, we're not going to have time to go and come back. Like we kind of need to do this now, because like my whole thing in the beginning was that I'm not automatically on board for killing. Like I'm open to other solutions, right? Taking
Like
them away,
kidnapping.
or one of my kind of ethical lines was like, I kind of want to know why I'm prepared to kill someone, but I want to know why, and if I personally think it's justified. But that all went out the window because it was like, no, it took so long to get the train here. But also, I don't think anyone could have stopped Wilt.
Yeah, and that is
I
really.
was going to go for it if there wasn't at least one other thumbs up. There was the idea with impersonating the guard, for instance. Everything in my head was revolved around getting me in a room in the briefcase, probably by a smuggling to do the deed. But it didn't necessarily have to happen like that. Like, would it have been better for him to be handed over to the spin rates?
Well, exactly.
It's a little less happy.
Yeah.
Potentially.
I think that kind of works with the genre, right? Or
Right.
like it's almost more fun that way because like obviously you have the spy genre is so like glamorized and stuff, and it's all very like, you know, that kind of like Ocean's 11 thing of like I had a plan all along and this is going exactly how I thought it was going to, and
That
stuff.
was me.
And like what we and what we did was basically the opposite of that, which is that like you can make all the best plans, but at the end of the day it's a fucking mess and no one really knows what's happening, and it's horrifying.
I thought that we were on track narrative wise when all of you got to a Kintara station and you were like, you know, this close to the auditorium and everything, and then you decided to split the party, and I was like, all right, let's roll with this. and I was like, okay, so we have to have some kind of conflict here to leave something unresolved. And it was either going to be you getting snatched, which what it ended up being since you were solo, or it was going to be, I was imagining, Wilted Shriek Collector flipping out and killing stuff and then getting like apprehended or maybe murdered. I don't know. Let's see how the dice roll.
But it turns out you don't need to rely on a psychopath because I will just accidentally split the party every game.
Yeah. As soon as you said you're leaving, I was like,
But I think that's like the thrust of role-playing games, right? Is like, you know, you have like the idea, you know, the players and the GM have some broad idea of what's going to happen and what like they're trying to do.
Right.
And then what actually happens is they meet like a parking attendant, and then like 2.5 hours of conversation later, they're like throwing a grenade at someone. The parking attendant is actually like the big villain of the campaign now.
An NPC says something with a tone slightly off, and you're like, "What do you say?"
It's a spy. Kill him.
Yeah.
Yes, but is it a spy question mark? Is the spy kill him? ...
Did you ever see that movie, The Tape, with Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman? The entire thing, no spoilers here, I guess, but the entire thing takes place in a motel room, and they keep being about to leave the motel room to go presumably to the next scene. Never do. The entire thing takes place right there, and that's kind of what that just made me think of. Like yes, the whole venture is you go to a parking lot and you think you're going elsewhere, but everything is right there.
And that's in the classic games like the Gygax era. It was like, you know, there's a door and people don't want to open the door because there's a really good chance in those early modules that the door is protected by a magical laser that will annihilate you. You don't even need that. Like everyone invents, like to Ben's comment, like you invent your own, like, you know, mind palace of what's going to go wrong as soon as the first person's like, oh, you need fare for the bus, and it's like, oh, it's on, motherfucker. I think back to like some of it, like Rachel was, you know, I think some of the interesting question for me, for y'all as players, is like the comfort level you had, because spy is such a loose genre. Like there's a Madcap 60s version, which I think Ocean's 11 is the inheritor of. And then there's kind of the tactical version now that's more popular, I would say, with like the Jack Ryan and what's the Bourne Identities.
The Bourne Identity, yeah.
Where like it's always like guys with M4s like doing kind of, you know, tactical moves, and they're trying to basically kill corrupt bad guys. And the twist is always
just shaky cam fighting.
Yeah, and the twist is just like one of your handlers is a bad guy, but that's it. Like once you find the wrong handler, the wrong like assistant vice director at the CIA or whatever, then you've solved problems and America is safe. Which obviously we vaguely on the left in some way like find that very like troublesome and overly pat. So Qadida makes a more interesting, like, you know, there's more realistic, gritty stuff. But as players, I don't know how fun it is to like assassinate people or be like, yeah, to Leo's question, is it worse if you don't kill YTS and YTS gets snatched by the basically fascist arm of the company? Like, you know, and how much you don't want to like see that necessarily in like a live play either. So like a lot of this stuff is like, how do you have stakes and tensions that feel real, but make stories that are like actually genuinely fun to play through, which I think y'all did a fantastic job of without, again, too much nudging from us as GMs. So I don't know. That's kind of a big question, but I'm kind of curious how y'all feel about that.
Name someone to start, I think.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like Rachel, you mentioned the spy stuff, so I don't know if I can put you on the spot to
well, Ben was right to start, so go for it, Ben.
Level,
sure. I feel like we're conditioned by this game. Like we all play this specific game, Stillfleet, a lot, and we're conditioned by this game to like every setup for every venture in this game is essentially like, here's your job. Go like use the mega cancer ray on a big population, and that's good. And you're excited to do that, right? And the players and you're like at gunpoint being told this, and you're like, okay, and then you get out into the actual world you're going to, and you're like, so okay, how do we not do this?
Okay,
Don't worry,
Yeah,
Co says they're bad people.
Yeah,
literally my first campaign in Stillfleet, which Wythe ran, we just moved to that planet. We just lived out the rest of our lives there. We were just like, we live here now. Like, we're not going back. We're not turning in this venture.
Over time in the Stillfleet playtest, we had a bunch of literal defectors. It was a convenient way for for people to be like, oh, well, I put in a few sessions and I've got to rotate off of doing this playtest. But it was also like, oh no, they're just decamping to whatever planet they're on, because disappearing into the local population is so much easier.
So many things have come out about like the CIA's like involvement in a lot of places, or just like spies in general. And it seems like just like what happened with the WCO side is like we were put in a place, and it's more about like creating opportunities for something to happen. And that's what how I conceptualize what a spy is. Like, you just create as many opportunities for you to do something, and if the opportunity arises, then you do it, basically. At least that's how I define spy, is just a guy who's, make a lot of holes, and sometime you find that hole, you decide, this is the hole for me, and then you jump in the hole. Yeah.
A lot of it is waiting for an opportunity. I often think about how people have this mental image of ninjas as the guys in the specific clothing, and no, most of them were pretending to be regular people. A lot of the training was about surviving in the woods. They were pretending to be normal until the opportunity arose, or just feeding information.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what's going to happen. You're going to obstruct the maneuvers you don't want to happen. You're going to aid the opposition of the things you want to keep from happening, and you're going to be chill and pretend to have a life.
There's nothing more eye-catching and like out of the ordinary than fucking like Tom Cruise in head-to-toe black Beltran.
Hilarious.
Well, in New York City, that is actually if you've been to New York City, that's actually not that eye-catching, because a lot of people just wear black, like full black all the time. Just in the blaring heat, people are still wearing all black clothes. Just I don't know.
That's just me when I was 14.
Yeah.
We're all just 14-year-olds. It's just 8 million 14-year-olds with
that's
other 12 million 14-year-olds on that.
Neverland. It's great.
I do want to bring that 5 out of the 8 of us are wearing black.
Oh, really?
I'm wearing black.
I didn't say I grew up.
Oh, wait, 6. Sorry, 6 out of the 8 of us. Okay, now 5. Thanks, Aaron.
Well, does anyone else have like a question, like a topic you wanted to ask your teammates out of diegetic world?
Yeah. I always, I don't know if this is just the ADD thing, but like I personally enjoy digressions to the point that it like really enrages DMs. What I liked about this campaign, and I wanted to get people's opinions playing it, is I think that there is this very, and I think it's just like how it developed, but it feels very natural to the point where it is considered part of gaming culture in this way, like that tension between like a directed story with an overarching plot, and this like player need to have it be so lived that you make small talk for like 2.5 hours with a jerk who you're probably going to stab. Like
definitely at the end of a conversation.
Yeah, just like that because conversation takes up an enormous amount of time in the world. So it's like the tension that exists between like that driven thing and that human need, and like a self-generating story that happens out of stuff like that. Like I like Qadida in this particular campaign in the world setting because, like, politics and like having read tons of spy stuff because I liked it very much when I was younger, and then studied it obsessively when I actually learned about it in school. That sort of intricacy and granularity and like just immense amount of time talking about how to protect a door, like it sort of lends itself to the spy genre pretty well. Like, did people feel that they were like rushed? Did people feel like they like when we were getting into the weeds of the how it like worked with the plot and setting, or like what was your feeling sort of kicking around inside the world?
I know at the beginning of this, like when we started, because there are me and Ben are in one of the playtest groups, right? Because me in that playtest group, there's a lot of times we do a math digression, even though no one actually knows about math. I promised at the beginning, okay, we're not going to do a math digression. I swear, I'm not going to initiate a math digression.
And then 2 hours later,
we did a box digression instead. We did a box digression.
I very much enjoyed the box digression.
And a LinkedIn digression. And I think one unfortunate, we did playtest Qadida, but like a different part of Qadida. Oh, that is one thing I did want to mention. There was this one NPC in that other Qadida game who ended up being less than cool. And that's why in that, I think it was in the first episode, me and Ben had the digression with, oh, this guy sucks ass, and you should just kill him right now.
Just nip it in the bud.
Well, and like my character like did know Aramunis like also, and it was like, oh, well, right. The first thing we're given about Aramunis in this game is that he wrote his own personal initials in a dead drop, which is like I think literally the stupidest thing a spy can do. Yeah. And so it's like great. Like
worse
you have given us material to completely dismantle this guy, who is in some ways an antagonist in this.
That's a spy with imposter syndrome. Like they really want you to know. I did this dead drop. Do you see this? That was
also I feel like I could even conceive of a different way of doing it in a way that would make me look good, but he did it in a way that made him look the worst possible. So that's all.
There. And it's just fun to harp on things like that too, right? Like I think as a player in a game, like you find an opening that a GM has given you to harp on something, and like when you're like I see that, then you just really go at it for like an hour.
Oh boy.
I do think pacing is like one of the hardest things, like in games. Yeah. Like if you have a finite stop, you have a certain number of sessions. Like that's one of the hardest things I think from both sides, like as a player and as a GM. Like my first ever game that I ran was meant to be like a 4-hour one shot, and it went 12 hours over 2 sessions.
I had a similar experience. The first time I ever ran, it was D&D. And I concocted this murder mystery, and in my head, it was a one-shot. But I had an entire small town of people interconnected. And long story short, it took 40 hours over
10 sessions.
There is a pipeline between over-prepped GM and guy who does this for a living.
I have text messages from Wythe during both sessions where he's like, "Hey man, we got 45 minutes left." I gotta say,
I'm like a screenwriter guy. I'm like, okay, let's hit the next beat. Like, let's but yeah, I mean, I also do love Ethan's like, let's do small talk. Are we friends? And like, yeah, Ben and Jeff have often been like, well, really, this is also Will Savino's not on this call, but yeah, like, wait, how large is this planet? We need like a number. And that's fun too.
What's the speed of the rotation of this planet as well, by the way?
on both of our sessions, it was about 25 minutes before close that I was like, okay, I have the end charted out. This is how we're going to land this ship that has one engine left. It's because it's a flying ship, not an airplane. And and in both cases, Rachel, you were MVP on that one by splitting the party, because if not, I was going to make Leo fight someone. Mm-hmm. And then on the second one, the encounter with YTS and Ethan and I had a back channel going on with that too. And then it just like, okay, you guys are going to murder him on the street. That's what's going to happen here. And the timing ended up being perfect both times. I was like, yes.
I definitely spent some of those sessions being a little terrified of, it might be a little too extra. I like to talk in character a lot. Should I stop? Here's some cured brain rat.
Oh, that was fantastic. That was great. I mean, awful flavor in game, but great metagame flavor. Yeah.
But I really like doing it. So a lot of the manic smiling that happens when I'm doing crazy shit in the last part is just me being really jittery and nervous. but also having fun at the same time and completely going crazy because I was told I'm going to die. I have to be as weird as I can before I die.
And you lived for much longer than I expected after that. Like, you did a lot after you were like, yeah, this is me.
Oh yeah, and like Angero was slated to bite it in the like. I was like, oh, you know,
Yeah, you guys are supposed to kill him.
I was like, I always have work on the weekends. I gotta like, let's wrap this up. And then it's like everybody's like, wow, Angero, like he almost became the final girl on this thing. I was like, cool. All right, I'm down for this ride.
Oh, that's why you exited so quickly in the combined session. You're like,
I mean, I feel like that part of that is like the social dynamics of PvP, right? Like, and of like putting two groups against each other. Like, even if we're working against each other, YTS is still an NPC. So like, it was fun to have like, you know, an extra person. I didn't even actually know that you were part of the other team. I just didn't. I thought,
cool.
I was like, are you just another NPC? Who knows? So, but there's no way. I mean, I think I said in the chat, I was like, Ethan, is it okay if we threaten you? Like table talk.
Yeah, and getting to White's question about comfort level with stuff like this, I always like, you know, there are certain limits that I just due to like, you know, personal reasons, like I don't want to experience at a table. So like those questions in the table talk is always like, it's always warranted and good and valuable. I think that like, you know, setting wise, you know, I'm always like of the means of like, well, like if this is a post-war period, you know, war is like literal hell. It's the worst. All the worst things in like jingoism is terrible. Politics is garbage. War is the worst thing that humans can do. Like, and so it's like having a setting like that where then terrible things happen. It's like, you know, murdering a politician is actually like the least horrible thing that's happened on this planet and in this setting, like in an amount of time. So
you
it's
hear
like
that, kids?
I mean, I also think like in terms of like what we're doing ultimately is acting, right? Like that is what's happening, particularly because we're presenting this for an audience. And when you are acting, like you have to have a language with your scene partner so that you do not cross any lines and you do things within the bounds of what's necessary for the scene, but you still do think, you know, you find things that are surprising with your scene partner, which are exciting in the moment, like, and are fun in the moment. And in a story like this, where it is sort of like a madcap spy versus spy, like, you know, assassination bonanza, like you find the things that are, you know, in our case, like kinds of hyper violence that end up being sort of fun, even though you are doing them to another actual person you are at a table with. And that's fun as long as you are doing it together and you sort of agree, like, okay, now we're going to fight. Now our characters are going to hate each other, but we're cool.
When you guys had Angero detained and it became evident that no one was going to make a decisive move one way or the other, that's when I introduced YTS and I was like, okay, we're gonna create an inflection point here. Something's gonna happen. You're either gonna lose your quarry or you're gonna murder this dude. I mean, you figured out throwing him in a dumpster, which I was like, all right, whatever, that's fine.
Close enough.
You took action though. Like that's what I wanted.
What is death except an eternal dumpster?
The coffin is just a small dumpster. You put one.
It's a personal dumpster
full of one-time trash.
Yeah.
It's just labeled for Angero.
There was food, there was water. It was almost crossing over to not too far from average Hong Kong apartment.
Oh. Yeah.
I don't really remember what the idea was before Angero went run once Yelton Shaver showed up. I was considering impersonating Angero when he mentioned with YTS, but I wasn't thinking much farther from that. Reconfig would cost grit, and then it would cost more grit to do the power and stuff, and the party would be split again if I had to take off pretending to be Angero. That would have been complicated.
Grit management was a huge. I mean, I know that's obviously a big mechanic in Stillfleet generally, but like even compared to other games I've played, it felt like I was always short on grit. These games.
Oh, we were pretty good, honestly. I feel.
Oh my
until
god,
the end.
no. I was not good at all.
No, but we used it all for one move at the last episode, like at the last episode of the single section. So like, it's not like we weren't using grit that entire time, most of the time, except at the end. So we had to like, opposite.
I guess I just feel like at the end of each session, we were like, so do we have time to sleep? And the answer, thank you, GMs. The answer was no. The answer was no. You're staying up for like 72 hours for this game. And you're going to like be at the end of your rope, which is in this game the most fun.
We did
when
sleep
like,
once.
Oh, well, I mean, I slept for like 2 hours.
No, after the first
You were
day.
busy setting up kill, death.
Yeah, well, after YTS -2, after that night, you guys all got one full.
Yeah,
night
we
rest.
slept once, but like you hadn't used grit then at that time, I think. The other thing I wanted to bring up, I kind of, for the combined session, I kind of wish the two teams did get a little bit more time to interact with each other. In a way, we didn't necessarily, because everything was like, at that time it was like go, we gotta go, or at least I was like, I gotta go get these guys.
There was so much action that needed to happen, like in that last.
I remember Jeff saying in the chat privately that like, oh, we're never gonna get to, like, we're not gonna have enough time to get to the final boss fight. But then he went ahead and just made the final boss fight.
We were the final boss fight, yeah.
Kind of, in a way, yeah.
Anyway, the real final boss fight was the friends we made along the way.
There was the plan was that Ian was supposed to play. I keep thinking Proust, but it's not Proust. It's Earth Pop.
Earth Pop, yeah.
Proust is the final boss. Earth Pop, and then they were supposed to fight whoever was still surviving after going through the span was supposed to fight Earth Pop and maybe some spin rates. But nope.
Well, we did.
Well, I guess it was just Ben versus Earth Pop
and Jeff.
Yeah,
Ben and Jeff.
All right.
Originally had a plan of like either having like Woost, who was the free Qadida handler, to go a little more slowly, like have a little bit more of a like. You could go join something that's not free Qadida, or not the worshipful company or honorable company. Like go not a third way, but another way, because you don't want to say like go the third way, because that gets to neoliberalism.
Well, that was already what we were trying to prevent.
And which is what you're trying to prevent. But like something that would be a little bit more longer and more narrative. But I think because we were near the end of that time, I was like, we're just going to have Earth Pop come in, and we had discussed in the GM channel like that'll be a fast ending.
That's the brick wall, right? Like, if it hasn't ended, then it's going to end one way or another.
Yeah, he got to make his villain speech, or like half of his villain speech, and then he got ventilated, which cool.
Which is the way to go. I actually had a question for Wythe, because he had commented that one of the things he commented on was like how D.O.G and Earth Pop basically wanted the same thing, and it was a weird horseshoe theory sort of like moment.
Yeah. Well, do you have a question, or is that just you're remarking on horseshoe theory popping up in our game?
The whole point of
we
this
all know
stream is that
real.
horseshoe theory is real.
It's not real.
It's not real. Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's one of the challenges with spy stuff, like we were talking about with genre, where you can write yourself into a situation, which happens in good spy shows all the time, frankly. Like I don't know if anyone's watched like Slow Horses, is probably the good spy show.
Heart is great.
Not like good ethically, but like it seems more real. Like the spies don't know what's going on, and there's a lot of weird I think that's one of the politically problematic aspects of these stories, that it seems both real and is fun to play. Is you can end up in a situation where you're like, I guess we want the same thing. People I really hate, and you can do morally evil acts because you're trying to help. It's utilitarian. Decision making, and I don't know, that's tough, but I mean, I really didn't know it was going to happen. I think from an ending perspective, we were just like, there's a lot of darts we have to throw at the wall. We only have a couple hours. Let's throw all the darts at the wall.
Yeah, I felt like at a certain point you realized we didn't put the span in yet. We have to put the span in the thing because it's part of the book. And then
I'm glad that got included. Yeah,
that was funny.
Well, and there's stuff we like more or less. So I think, like, I don't know. I mean, Ian being a bad guy, I felt like, sure, Ian, you can be the bad guy. It's your book. I really like the span a lot, and I think Ian, you do too, right? So we were just like, yeah, well, there can be a chase. It's right in the middle. Makes sense. They'll have to go through it. That'll be interesting. But we really didn't over prepare this one. I mean, I know. So it's maybe this is a question for Ian and Aaron. Y'all did prepare some interesting, like thinking of the checklist of you can only prevent so many kinds of specific scenarios.
Yeah,
only so much time and so many resources. Like that was really interesting to sort of
I like that too.
Which I wouldn't have thought of. But yeah, it wasn't one of these campaigns where like every scene was plotted out at all. It was much more like you guys are in a city, what do you do? And then because it was different GMs, even there wasn't any one person making decisions. You know, it's just like, all right, you know.
I was disappointed narratively that we didn't get to have our group collide with the preparations you made in the amphitheater, which never turned into any kind of scenario at all.
Like I don't know if you guys knew this, but if you try to mess with the podium, it was like trapped. Like there was a bomb in the podium, like a stun bomb that would have like stunned you, like the same bomb that that we accidentally used on ourselves. That bomb was on you, was gonna be like set off to blow up on you if you try to like mess with the podium or look at it or
Right.
make a loud noise.
I'm disappointed we didn't have that interaction, but at the same time, I think it almost felt more spy-like for you all to assume that one particular outcome would happen that you're preparing defense for, and then the reality was something completely different.
Yeah, when Ben, when you revealed yourself, like you got me so good. I did not see it coming.
Dude.
So like, yeah, I think that is very, very true. Exactly. And again, there's so many different versions of spy from you know Mad Magazine to like so it's like, and that's a separate tone challenge. So it's like didn't really see coming, but that's like the disappointment and the disillusionment, and then like a Maltese Falcon not being inside a thing that you thought it was going to be in, like that felt very natural.
I almost did a spit take IRL when Ben said, "I use assassinate." I was like,
Yeah.
"Wait, what?"
Yeah.
I use the power of murder.
That's what I meant.
I use the kill everyone button.
Like I knew you were the mole, of course, but like I did not expect that at all.
I guess as a question, because a lot of people play a lot of Stillfleet, has anyone used the murder power before this point?
This is my first time.
I've never used it, but I've been in a party where somebody made frequent use of it.
I tend to use a lot of small costing powers or powers that cost nothing at all, to be fair. Which is
I learn a lot more than I play, so no.
Yeah, we had playtesters use it a lot in the big long one that Ethan, you were in. I think I think some of those early powers too, like con, steal, murder. I mean, yeah, they're meant to be like really big plot moments. But as the game grew, there's obviously lots of like now, especially for higher level play, health science or nanofluidics, where you like are doing more spell like, you know, you're burning grit to like do a thing. I don't know. It feels like maybe just as options grew, also there's no one power that like is everyone's always using it, which is good, I guess. I don't know. I mean, what do people think? But
I guess like classes use their marquee powers all the time because they're very like con is very useful.
Con is super useful. Yeah, I guess con comes up a lot. Smooth over also, which is great. I mean, the game in some ways, I think one of the big like points for the game is to use smooth over. But yeah,
reconfig is really good if you're trying to go incognito. You can just, if I wanted, my bugman could shrink down to guy's size. Just
right.
A small 12-year-old.
I could. Reconfig lets you shrink down to child size. I just insisted on being a Wythe because I had the voice situation.
Well, yeah, and I mean, also those are like things that aren't, I mean, who knows? Like the giant bug thing is a MacGuffin. It's a sci-fi trope we're all sort of familiar with. But yeah, if your spiracles are messed up or whatever, it's sort of like if you would have something to help you speak and it sounded somewhat mechanical for a human, but it's on a bug. How does that sound? I don't know. It's a fun opportunity to like make that up. I was going to say with the big endings, like murder, that moment, and then at the end with Jeff and the bombs, it felt very Shakespearean, where in Shakespeare, like there's often somebody's giving a speech and then an army shows up and a guy's just like, okay, we're going to kill all of you. And like, that's the end of like Hamlet or King Lear or whatever is like,
that's what I was, backstage we were doing the chat, and I was saying that it was a reverse like Romeo and Juliet ending where it's like the Capulets and Monta, boom.
Yeah. Also, I felt bad because I barely used any of those bomb powers until that last session. I was like, well, I got to use every one of these powers. I think I used all of them except sabotage.
Yeah, when you used that, I was like, man, why didn't I use that? I had that the whole time. I had 3 of those.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a
done that
question
earlier.
for players. Speaking of that, are there any powers you didn't get to use that you wish you would have gotten to use? I know there's a few that I would wanting to see, but
Oh yeah.
It's just sabotage for me, I think.
I used all mine.
We didn't get into enough combat for me to use the tactical powers that I had picked.
I didn't get to perform the marsh medicine, which was kind of a bummer.
You're trying to.
That. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think did I use everything? Yeah, I think so. Oh no, I didn't. Yeah. I mean, I only used sabotage on a bin. Oh no, then I did the lampposts as well.
Yeah, you did.
You did cool stuff. Terri did cool stuff. I was the only one who was hoarding grit. I was like a power lifter waiting to get on the platform and managing everything.
Yeah, I spent very freely of my grit, and I paid for it later. But yeah,
I am glad that someone got to use Defenestrate. I'm sorry that it was on you, Jeff.
I think that works.
You know what's funny is that where we're spending our guilders like to get weapons and stuff at the start. I honestly thought about getting a bike. Should have done
If
it.
we had all gotten bikes, it would have been a very different end.
There should have been a whole thing on the Freaky Data side about like there just being like Vine bikes, but just free and everywhere. There's just bikes all around.
Just bike.
All the streets are just bike only, no cars, just bikes.
No walking, just bikes.
I have this very fun mental image now, thanks to you, of the old bicycles that had the ginormous front wheel and the tiny one.
Oh, a penny farthing.
Yeah, Wilt on one of those.
Oh my god.
Well, so it is afternoon, so I gotta ask: do folks want to stick around, or do we want to call it and say, thank you for an amazing double venture and a couple, chats beside them? And we may have to do this again. We may, if people are interested, we may do some more Stillfleet live stream. But thank you for really helping us pioneer like how to do it so anyone can hear it. And I'll just note, if you didn't watch the Stillfleet Qadida double stream with all of our amazing streamers, it is now up on YouTube, so you can watch it all and catch up on the arguments about LinkedIn and other digressions. And
the Kickstarter is $850 from its next stretch goal.
Oh, really?
From its last stretch goal that we all decided on beforehand, so we may have to add more.
Holy crap!
Ethan and I really cards. So Ethan, that's enough money where we can actually do more crazy.
Do more cards, yeah.
Yeah, tell people how if people have no idea, how do they get to the Kickstarter? Search.
You just
Qadida
go to
on Kickstarter?
Kickstarter.com and you can just probably search for Qadida or Stillfleet.
Open your web browser.
Qadida is spelled Qadida.
And the cards, if no one saw the first round of cards, which are half encounters, so quick rules for encounters with aliens, and half like items, architect that people can find with a couple of rules reminder cards. They were super fun. But yeah, I think the last stretch goal.
The last one is the Hulk Crawl deck.
Yeah. So that would be, we'll add another deck of cards, but it'll be rooms on an abandoned spaceship, and that will be really cool because we'll have lots of fun. It'll be modular, so you can like lay out the ship and design it by drawing cards at random.
Please let me help with that one. That sounds so much fun.
I'm really excited.
Do you have any rule
I've
books
been
left?
anticipating
Because I know one of the tiers is you get a rule book.
Rule book.
The Stillfleet core rulebook is still available on Kickstarter. Let me look at how many people have backed at the various levels. Yeah, there's still a few left. So don't worry about that. We still have some. And this is the last time for a while because we are going to run out. So we don't have a real solid plan just because if we sell them a bunch of places, we're just going to run out. So we'll have to figure out a second printing. But this is our last time for at least several months. We'll be like selling physical books, basically. So backer kit will be open, but I think the core rulebook you can only get by pledging during the Kickstarter. But yeah, thanks everyone, and thanks to Ian for coming to us with this great idea for setting. And thanks to everyone who's contributed like tons of amazing ideas. Aaron wrote the Rain Thieves. Leo, we did one of your mini ventures. I know we want to publish more of your stuff. Ethan, we're working on your whole game right now, so that'll be our next game. It's a fantasy game. And Rachel, we got to do Whisper Folk. So I'm just saying Whisper Folk.
Whisker, yeah. Someday, man, someday.
Yeah. So, and everyone, you have your things in the chat. Oh, if you haven't plugged your social media or whatever, feel free. Thanks everyone for watching. Any final thoughts, or should we sign off for now on Qadida, the stream?
Wythe had a question in the private chat. I wasn't sure if I should ask it.
Wait. Yeah, sure. We will probably be at Gen Con. So Aaron and I will probably be at Gen Con.
We're going to be at Gen Con.
And you can, meet up with us and play the game. I don't think we're not going to have an exhibitor booth, but we will be there and we'll be around and we'll have,
every day or.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So that's it.
Join the Stillfleet Discord.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for watching.
Wait, no, join the Stillfleet Discord if you want.
Yes.
It's a really cool
We're
Discord.
there.